Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Reena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. All right, so we're back today. And we're talking about a subject that we've spent a lot of time talking about, which is patient reviews, the drama of dealing with patient reviews. And I feel like over time, our mindset on how to deal with reviews has definitely evolved, if you would say. What do you feel like are some of your thoughts on why we're even talking about this today?
So I know when we talked about, even creating this podcast, it was what goes on day to day. And yeah. I am an open book. I don't mind sharing that I don't know everything. And when I think I do know everything, it's good that I seek counsel, because a lot of times it becomes revealed to me that I don't know everything that I thought I knew. And, even practicing for as long as I have, there's just every day, there's new challenges, something different. And it's all with a little different twist to it. So I think for me, reviews, this is something that everybody talks about. Everybody's panicked about. And you get, I think we all know you shouldn't engage in anything that's going to be a HIPAA violation.
Right.
And you shouldn't engage in XYZ. So I think we're all well versed on that. I think we all probably have been told by someone to develop a thick backbone, and, it is what it is. But I would say, even for those of us with the thinnest of skin, it does hurt your feelings. You've done a good job, and it does make you very defensive. And it's still my opinion. It is absolutely 1,000% unfair. I, in my next career, would like to figure out a way to where I can blast you just like you can blast me. I want to try to go back to law school and figure out a loophole.
Yeah.
To get around HIPAA, to have my bank of you're a bad patient. So anyway, putting all of that aside, I do think it's the dreaded reviews, and I think there's always philosophies on, do you address them, do you not, what's the best way, all of those things. I think that's so unique to each individual practice. And then, of course, diving into the reviews, what did we say, should we respond, how should we respond? So I think that, to me, that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with this podcast, because to me that is so real world. And I think, it is hard it would be nice for me to get on here and say, nope, I've got all 5 stars, which,
We could all wish for that.
Yes, I thought I think I should have all 5 stars, but nonetheless, I do think too, where it's still, my initial response is very defensive. And then I stop and I think, no matter how useful the review was, or how ridiculous I think the review was, I always try. And sometimes it takes me a week to get there, to come full circle and go, okay, well, clearly this was someone's, how we made them feel. Clearly that was not my intention, but I made you feel a certain way, and maybe you are ridiculous and you feel things that you shouldn't feel, right? But then I have to come back and I always go, there was still something that happened that made this person feel this
that
way. And is there any positive that I could gain out of this? And so I think that's where, for me, we're going through this reviews. It's still a very painful process for me to go through on multiple levels, emotionally and also HIPAA-wise and business-wise.
There's a lot that you're juggling as you read these reviews. Well, and let's even trace it back to, first and foremost, you have to read the reviews. Now, there are some people that will have somebody else read the reviews for them, but I can't tell you how many clients I've sat down with that have never looked at their reviews.
Yeah, and I think that's scary to me. And I, this, I 1,000% understand where you're coming from, because it's easy to say, oh, people are crazy, they can write whatever they want to, but the truth of it is, for me, I go to a restaurant without looking at reviews? Now, of course, you're going to have the whole ridiculous smatter of the food was terrible. The food was amazing. Service was terrible. The service was fantastic. So I think that's where, for me, it's easy to write off views. But at the same time, do I look at a review before I go somewhere? I absolutely do.
Right.
And I'm one who doesn't Facebook, who doesn't... So But it is human nature to want to see what people are saying about a place. Now, I don't look at my reviews. The good ones, the bad ones, give me so much anxiety. And I have people that laugh and say, well, why are you upset at the good ones? I'm not upset, but it's definitely me going through and saying, I have made an impression on someone, good or bad. And so then how do I replicate that? Is that what's going to be asked of me next time? How do we deliver the same? So I think it just makes me very on edge to have to think about all of those things. And, so I don't look at my reviews, and I think it works for the team too. Now, of course, that took us a year, 2 years in the making to get to where I don't have to look at reviews. And what do I mean by that? Well, can I just farm it all out to one team member? That's one thing that you could do.
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing that. Even your trusted team members, don't see it from, like, at least in our small office, this is my name and my reputation. And, for example, there was one we had that was a woman who said everything went really well, but your team, I wish you offered other toys than a gold coin.
Oh, yes. I remember
because
this
I've
one.
got young one, and they all fight at the end of the day because I don't want the little one to get a coin because it's a choking hazard and whatnot. And I know I didn't, because I farmed that out to my team. And it took about 2 weeks. And then my husband is my next layer of buffering who looks at all of this stuff for me. And he's not dental. So I like his feedback because he is very much
real life person.
Average Joe who's like, what? And so where sometimes I don't like his feedback, I know I need his feedback. So he said something like, well, hey, y'all didn't reply to this one. And I was like, we didn't? And so I went back to my team and I said, why didn't we reply? And my manager who was in charge at that time said, well, it's so dumb. Of course we have toys for the kids. Like, that's such a dumb comment. I just didn't even comment on it. And so I was like, I mean, it is kind of dumb. But on the other hand, I was like, cannot overlook what is this woman trying to tell us?
Yeah.
And so digging in, nobody knows. My team knows we've got toys that are not choking hazards from a parent's perspective.
Right.
By the way, this team member too doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
And so she really couldn't understand versus some of the other team members who have littles were like, no, I see what this mom is saying.
This is valid.
This is valid.
Yeah.
But in any case, not that I'm saying that she couldn't see it because she didn't have kids, but just the point being that she was so quick to brush it off as stupid because we do have toys. And so to me, I went, how does the parent know? No, we have the toys. How does the parent know we have Well, we tell them. Do we?
Do we consistently tell them?
And the answer to that was a resounding heck no.
Yep.
Heck no. I have seen the assistants in my office, like to the 18-month-old. Oh, well, here's his coin. And I'm like, hey, Dad, don't you give that 18-month-old a coin? What's wrong with you? But they're not thinking, right? They're just going through their checklist of this is what I've got to get done right now. And I got to get the kid his toy and I got another patient waiting. They're not
thinking through
at
that
level. And I can guarantee that's what happened with this mom. And so that led to us putting a sign that says, we have other toys.
Yeah.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
So that way, when you have the assistant that didn't mention it right there, and so, but
well,
it
and
led
even that to taking something valuable out of that. Like, first of all, your first line of defense kind of wrote it off as, that's the dumbest thing I've ever read. It's not even worth my response. Thankfully, you've got a second line of defense with your husband checking it and going, hey, nobody ever responded to this. You get into it and you're thinking, let's figure out how this actually happened. Is this catastrophic for a business? No. Many people would just write it off and go, why even waste my time on that? But to take that review and go, how can we make an improvement out of that? That's the beauty of reviews, is you can take something simple like a choke-free, toy for an infant, and you can go, well, we have those, but the parents weren't knowing consistently that we had those. What did we do? Made a nice little sign. That was an improvement in the practice that wouldn't have been there if we wouldn't have taken the time to look at that review.
Well, and I go back to what you just said. Is it catastrophic? No. But if this mom is in mom's groups, I can guarantee you that's what she's going to be saying. Oh, we had a really good dental visit, but just watch at the end that, or, oh, you have a good dentist? Really? Because I really like our dentist, but I really don't like this part of it. And then, it is a concern to me. So maybe we'll try your dentist. So is it catastrophic?
True.
It depends on that mom. And then, you've got the other, like this employee that's like, well, if you want to leave our office over a coin, then leave our office. That's fine. And I kind of see that too. Yeah. It's like we just, stood on our heads doing this amazing prophy and doing this amazing, like, whatever we did, right? Because everything we do is amazing, right? And then it was ruined by the gold coin. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't have to give a toy and all of that, right? And how many, this could be another whole podcast. Like, how much trouble have we had with the toy tower at the end, where a parent that's not happy with the toy they got, and so that's a whole nother conversation.
We'll do a podcast on just the toy tower.
Right? God bless. So, but nonetheless, so my point, and I think I've probably kind of gotten off the track here, but my point was that reviews, you can either choose to ignore all of them. I just think that's a missed opportunity. But certainly, can they cause a lot of distress? Yes, they can. So anyway, I guess that's the point of this podcast. Yeah. And we will probably come back and do this podcast quite often because...
I think we'll do it multiple times because it's such a relevant topic. And I feel like it's one of those things that we feel, to your point earlier, we feel handcuffed. Like... we've seen all of the very basic responses, when we're looking at reviews, or even to your restaurant point earlier, when you see all of the basic owner responses, like, thank you so much for your review, or we appreciate you taking the time. And you're like, okay, that's a cut and paste answer. And there's no thought that went into that. And we've seen that on the dental side. That has been historically, quite honestly, the recommended response to every review is just say thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll keep it status quo. And I think you and I decided a long time ago that we, for the most part, loathe those responses because it does handcuff us to where we cannot respond in a way that's actually helpful to the person that's looking for the review. The cut and paste response doesn't help them. So
although I will say, like, I literally just, 3 nights ago, listened to a webinar for my malpractice insurance. They pretty much were recommending either don't respond or give this cut and paste. It's, thank you for your response. Feel free to reach out to our office so we can discuss this further. And that's not, so I'm going to say that is absolutely probably the right response. I think for me, again, and maybe me being an idiot, me being defensive and I can't let it go. But I really do feel like a lot of times I want to try to explain my side as best I can without trying to violate HIPAA. So that's on me. That may not be the best advice for everybody, but that's on me. But I also do think, well, yes, how do I help people? And maybe how do I help my practice? Because there are times, too, where somebody will complain about something. And I'm thinking, there is no way I am changing that. That is the core of my office. And so if that's the kind of office, as a secondary reader reading that, looking at, patient number 1 complained about this insurance issue. And I, as a doctor, am not going to get involved in your insurance issues. I'd rather lose you as a patient than have to, to check every detail of your insurance. It's just not the practice I'm willing to run. Now patient 2 is reading patient 1's review and is going, yes, she didn't look at their EOB and call 5 different reps to get the right answer. I'm not going to go to those lengths. Right. So if I now leave a response that's like, yep, we're not an insurance company and that you are going to be on your own, hopefully patient 2 goes, oh, this is not important to this practice. Well, maybe it's not a good practice for me to go to. Right. And I would agree wholeheartedly.
We've eliminated the type of people that we don't want in the practice. I agree completely. And that's why I feel like even just some level of coloring in that response helps to solidify the type of practice that you are and the type of practice that you aren't. And even that is helpful as a reader of reviews, which again, we can identify that most people are when they read those reviews, and the response that adds a little bit of color to that, then the patient is able to then make a decision. Is this the right practice for me? And heaven knows we want to spend our day with people that want the type of practice that we're actually offering, not the type of person that wants all of these things that we don't offer.
Exactly. So I think, and going back to, do I read my own reviews? I don't. I still to this day don't. They all bring me anxiety. So then in looking for, when we talked about how should we do this, should we go back to an old review? And we just decided, no, let's go look now on my website. And I was like, oh my God, how do I even do this? Like, I don't want to do this. It's making me sick. But here we are.
Yes.
And looking at just my practice and the reviews that pop up, And I think we do have several garden variety. Thanks for your response, blah, blah. But that's what we're doing for the good,
The positive ones.
positive
Yes,
reviews.
that makes total sense.
And do we reply to every single one? I think we do. Again, I'm so far out of it now.
So removed from it.
So
Yep.
removed because I don't enjoy looking at reviews. Now, my colleague who works in the practice with me, he thrives on reviews. He
Yeah.
loves the good, the bad, the ugly. Like,
Yeah.
that is his jam. He wants to have a pulse and a feel on the office. So again, if you're one of those people, great. And if you're more like me, who's sensitive Sally over here, then having a system in place. But I think the point of all of this last 5 minutes conversation is please don't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah, you got to engage with it in some way, whether it's you personally, whether it's a spouse that's doing it for you, whether it's a team member that you have that's kind of that first catch like you have in your office, and then there's a second person in line if they miss something, and then you are brought in periodically on ones that you're like, hey, we just need your thought. We're about to put this very detailed response. We want your feedback. Then you will usually chime in on some of those more complicated ones.
Right. And if you're still not going to reply to anything, I really think that's okay. But I guess where I'm saying don't bury your head in the sand is there are opportunities there to either improve your services or to figure out things of what's being said about your practice.
Yes.
So even if you don't reply online, are there other strategies to combat whatever's being said? So I think the point is, even though some of us may want to bury our heads in the sand, I don't think that is.
Yeah. This is an
the best way
opportunity
to
to make improvements and
Yeah.
or to learn from a situation.
Absolutely.
Or to restore a good relationship with a patient. Maybe you don't reply online, but maybe you're picking up the phone and calling this patient. So there are multiple opportunities that if we're just burying our head in the sand, we're missing those opportunities. So we have to engage in some way.
I agree. Okay, so going down to, we have a 1-star a month ago.
I feel like we need like a drum roll or something.
I know, God. Do you have a trash can for my bucket of bile coming up here? Okay. So this is a person. So let me just read what the review says, and then I'll kind of tell you my initial thoughts.
And this is real life, by the way.
Yeah,
so
I literally just hopped on Google to look at this.
Yeah.
I've not looked at reviews in a year.
Yeah.
I personally.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so this says, I visited this place around November, December 2020 as its closest and with the best reviews. A doctor in the practice, I won't say the doctor's name, but a doctor in the practice examined my son, and I was not at all agreed with him. 3 crowns and 1 extraction. I decided to take a second opinion. I took 2 more opinions, and they were very similar. 1 crown and the rest of them were filling. I read the reviews again, and most of them were saying good things about another doctor in the practice. And I think that's the doctor that's bringing the higher rating up for the whole dental center. This review may sound rude, but believe me, putting my son on anesthesia for no reason is much worse. Okay. So to me, when I heard about this, I was like, what? And what's the first thing that comes to mind, though, is this review was posted a month ago. So like June of 2020.
So 6-7 months.
6-7 months.
After.
Right. And so I thought, what? And so I asked my manager, I said, can you pull this up? Give me some history on this. Who is this?
Yeah.
And this patient has come to the practice 1 time.
Wow.
For that exam.
Okay.
No contact after that. So it's not like they asked us for a second opinion or said, hey, can you review this again? Or what do you are
Right.
there any other options? Nothing. So they left the practice and then went dentist hopping. And as we all know, we all
Yeah.
have a different patient. You're going to get a different viewpoint everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So I honestly think a second opinion is actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
Because something in our office did not jive with you.
Yeah.
I don't want you in my office if you're going to question everything I do.
Absolutely.
That's a liability
Yeah.
that I don't want. And frankly, I think I do a great job. And so if you don't think I do a great job, then
Yeah.
move along.
Absolutely.
So anyway, sensitive Sally coming
Yeah.
back again. Sorry. So anyway, the fact that you're seeking several opinions, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I actually
Yeah.
think that's probably good. If you didn't like what I had to say, then move on.
To your point, every other office and every other doctor is going to have a different opinion. And if somebody wants to seek that, we should feel confident enough in ourselves and our assessment that we're not worried by that or offended by that.
Right. And I mean, it took me years to
get to that point.
It has. But to me, I mean, I very much see the liability. It's just red flags all over the place. If you proceed with something that you never felt completely comfortable with, and then bless it if something goes wrong. You know, we're not perfect. And so anyway, so I think for me, that was the most, you know, I kind of laughed. I was like, that was 6 months ago. How do you even remember what we said?
Exactly.
You can't even remember what we said 6 months later. It's what you chose to take away from that appointment. So, of course, we go back and we look at it, and we did not give you just one option.
Yeah.
We said we could do this. We said we could do that. And we went through pros and cons of each. So that affirmed to me that you took a piece of what was said, and that's all you
walked away with.
Again, human nature, does that happen every day, all day? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But I think to me, again, the unfairness of this is that it looks like we gave you no options. We said, you must blah, 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 blah. And that's not at all what happened, sir.
Exactly.
So let's see what we posted. Our response back was, thank you for sharing your concerns. It is common for specialists to offer varying opinions on treatment recommendations based on their individual experience and training. It sounds like our office's treatment philosophy was not a good fit for your needs. We are glad to know you found a provider that shares your oral health care goals. Please give us a call if you desire to have any of your records forwarded to your new dentist. So to me, this is my manager. She's super smooth with her responses now, because my response would have been like, bye, Felicia. Can I just leave 2 words on there? Bye. Get out of here. Good for you. So, but, you know, again, that to me was, I think the liability people may say we shouldn't have even said anything because now from a HIPAA, maybe it proves that you were here and not. My response to that is, in this case, you have already said you've come to the office. I've given no details about which kid we saw, what
we did not insert any new piece of data into our response. We only responded to the data that she presented in that review. So that makes it HIPAA compliant. Now, the thing, I want to come back to kind of this PAT response that is being recommended. I think the reason that it's being recommended, if we were to look at that review again that you just read, the response to that review, it is absolutely above board. There is nothing that was done wrong in that review from a privacy standpoint, even from a just decency standpoint. The reason that all of the companies recommend this PAT response is that's the only thing that they can control. They could teach on responses all day long that are appropriate, but that's too complex and people are going to make mistakes in that. So if we can't kind of, it's like give them an inch and they're going to take a mile. If we give them an inch of flexibility on these responses, they're going to take a mile.
And then blame the liability company that you said I could XYZ. Right.
Exactly. So they're doing that truly from a risk standpoint. Just leave it this response and then there will be nothing that comes from this. I think you and I approach it a little bit differently, and this response is a perfect example of that because it's just a little extra detail. Nothing new was added to the conversation, but it very clearly said it sounds like our office philosophy. First of all, you're going to receive varying opinions from specialists, which is a fact. And our philosophy doesn't seem to fit with your philosophy. And we are so glad that you found somebody that fits your philosophy. That is such a perfect PR response because first of all, it acknowledges the differences in specialty opinions. It also acknowledges that we are happy. We truly are. We are happy that you found somebody that's fit your philosophy. So as a mom reading that to go, that felt like a genuine response. And then we offered help. Please let us know if we can help you make this transition to the new doctor, smooth and seamless. Nothing new was added to that would, should, or could upset that mom. And any other mom or parent reading that review is going to go, that was a good response. Rather than, thank you so much for your feedback. We appreciate the time you took in writing this response today. That gives nothing.
That helps no one.
No.
And I think, again, my defensive, sensitive Sally, it's like, I still agree with my philosophy. I don't take one thing
Yep.
and say, yeah, you're right, or no, those other dentist opinions are terrible. Mine is, obviously you would never say that, but if you came back and said, well, we recommended this because of this, and we all know that this, and your kid acted this way, which is why we recommend it. Like that for me is my initial, like, I want to come out and explain my side. But then this just kind of sums it up. This is our philosophy. There are multiple different philosophies.
Exactly.
Glad you found one that met your needs.
Exactly.
Right? So,
with a little tone of maybe bye, Felicia, at the end. Like, if you need help transitioning to that new doctor.
Yes, and that's my kind, so I don't get cited for patient abandonment and all of that, which is another podcast topic altogether. But I just think, why can't I abandon you here? But
exactly.
Again,
I think that's such a good example. And the fact that, first of all, that review was read by a team member. It was responded to. And when it was brought to your attention, you're like, wait a second, let's look into this. Right? Let's look at the details of this to recognize that this review was written 6 months post the one visit that they had in your office. That's illuminating and enlightening for you to then take this review with a grain of salt. This is not somebody who's been in your practice for ages and is now all of a sudden super offended with the information that you gave them. This is somebody that had one shot with your office and took away 6 months later, that you only offered them the one option. And they were not okay with that. So taking the time to kind of dive back into the details, I think, is really important.
Well, and that's what we talk about, look for opportunities. Yeah. So did we give you more than one opinion? Did we base this on, what was the need for why we recommended a crown versus a filling, and what kind of conversation did we have regarding that? Give us a good opportunity to go back and make sure that we documented treatment alternatives, pros and cons, which in the state of Texas, that is in the Dental Practice Act. You need to be giving alternatives. And I hear that all the time. Well, I talked about this and this, but you didn't write it down. It's not in here.
Exactly.
So if nothing else, it's almost like an inadvertent chart audit where you're going back and saying, what did we offer this patient? And if you go in and you find that there was no alternatives mentioned, well, if this patient decides to complain about you, you're going to be in trouble.
Exactly.
So it gave us an opportunity to audit ourselves. And it also gave us an opportunity to say, well, is it something in my presentation that made you think? Well, at this point, 6 months later,
I know,
none of us is going to remember that. So all we have is the chart note to go on. And luckily, our chart note did say, no, we were given this option or this option. And the parent was supposed to go back and figure out what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, they didn't like what we had to say. Option 1, 2, or 10. They didn't like. It's not the answer they were looking for or hoping for.
Right.
So we're the bad guy. That happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's good that we have parted ways and you have found a home. But I think us reading the review really, again, for me, my initial response is, bye, Felicia, you're a fool. My next response is, well, is there anything we could have done different on our end?
Absolutely.
So
what's the training opportunity here?
And I may come away with nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. We did give you multiple options. We did write it down.
Yeah.
This is what you took away. So I have nothing else to share. But
right.
At least going back and being able to see if there was an opportunity is another, was kind of the point.
For sure.
Of going through this.
Let's read another one.
Let's read
another
one.
Are you willing to share?
Yes, yes. So this is another one that really hurts my heart. I guess it makes me very sensitive because I know she's talking about me. So this is a review from 6 months ago, so it must have been earlier this year. And the comment is, we stopped, this is a long one, so I'll kind of go through this pretty quickly here, but we stopped going here because they incorrectly installed silver caps on my child's back teeth. She had 8 caps done under general anesthesia. The caps they put on my child's teeth were big. They could have installed smaller caps. The problem now is that her very back teeth are coming out, and one is caught on the bottom of one of the silver caps, so we have to get the cap redone. So spending more money. The new dentist is confused as to why bigger caps replaced. Blah, 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 blah. So overall, it was sloppy and speedy work. They have a day dedicated to general anesthesia, so they have kids lined up throughout the day like a conveyor belt to come in and get work done. felt like they were trying to maximize profit without really thinking about what's best for the child. So that, again, that hurts my heart because that is the exact opposite
of what you're aiming for.
Of what I'm aiming for. So then I start going, do we have a line? I didn't recognize we had a line and a conveyor belt, because for me, the most cases I do in a day is 4. So that was interesting.
That felt, unfair.
That felt extremely unfair. Then I start going, are you even my patient? And funny enough, I don't know that we authenticated that this was a patient of ours. So then I go, well, did you go somewhere where it was just this chop shop that they did crazy work? But then I stop and I go, okay, to put caps on that are too big, that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
Even like a new grad from dental school, like that's kind of hard to do. Then I start thinking, okay, well, did you go to another dentist that doesn't understand that first molars are very commonly erupt ectopically? And so it has nothing to do with the crown. It has to do with the first molar. And to me, where that becomes, again, this is my defenses coming out. I start thinking, okay, now you're going to spend money to go get another crown put on, which is probably not going to help your problem. So the cycle is going to, so then but again, I don't know where, but it just hurt my heart. And I got very defensive about all of it. And I just said, I have to step back from this response because I clearly am too involved. I'm too sensitive about it. So I think I passed it over to you and to the team. What was the response we finally put? We were disappointed. We are disappointed with your impression of the quality of our work and your relationship with our office. Our doctors and staff worked thoroughly to explain. So actually, she must have been a patient.
Yeah, because we responded as if she was.
Our doctors and staff worked thoroughly to explain the diagnosis, treatment plan, and treatment process with you before treatment was scheduled, and all that was recommended was in the best interest of your child. Pediatric dentists trained for 2 to 3 years in pediatric specific care. Dentistry under anesthesia is a key component of the training, specifically because of its safety. Please give us a call if you have questions or would like to discuss your child's treatment. I think the other part that I didn't read in her review centered on how she doesn't believe general anesthesia is a good option and how her current dentist is telling her that nobody needs general anesthesia. I think, to me, from what I gleaned from that, is this is probably a very... I'm going to actually stop myself right there. Let me not get myself in trouble here. I just think that my response kind of covered it.
Exactly.
My team's response covered it.
Yes. Yes. And again, it was clearly attending to the details that she presented in that review, but it didn't insert any new data or detail, but it stood firmly. So when you've got a review like that really almost attacks the core of what you're trying to do, which is why this one was so hurtful, which is good dentistry, quality dentistry, never the assembly line feeling. With a small practice, especially in yours, that quality, we really want that to feel like it's there at all time and to be there. So this struck a chord, because we fight every day in your office to never offer an experience that feels like a low quality experience. And so we felt like this deserved a strong response. Like, no, we need to stand firm that we stand behind pediatric dentist being a specialist. There's a lot of training that goes into that. Dental anesthesia, there's a reason for that from a pediatric standpoint, and that's the reason that we offer it. And so we wanted to come back with a very firm response. And that, to me, as somebody that, as a mom, let's say I didn't know your office and I was reading that review, I would be concerned that I'm potentially bringing my child to an office where it's an assembly line, where they do bad work. Again, if it was a non-dental person reading that, I would think this essentially is saying they did bad work. They did bad crowns. They installed crowns that were too big. And to have a response after that goes, thank you so much for taking the time to review our office. We appreciate the time that you took. I would look at that and go, well, they just validated that. They just said, basically, we're sorry.
Yeah,
that's
we're sorry
true.
that I had to put crappy crowns on your kid's teeth, which I firmly know I did not.
Exactly. So to me, that response that your team member ended up creating was a very firm, solid, we stand by our work essentially without saying that. And I, as a mom, would appreciate seeing a firm response that, as I think to the best of y'all's ability, you were attempting to kind of squash what she said. So yeah, I think that's a perfect example.
And it's got to be truthful, of course.
Yeah.
You know, and so I know in our office, parents are all over the place in our office. We have long conversations. We go back and forth. There's multiple steps. And so I think for me, again, I was just very appalled, hurt, just, makes you just want to say, forget it. And so I think, again, in this mom's case, clearly someone has said something to her that, this is another topic for another podcast here, like throwing each other under the bus. I don't understand why dentists do that to each other. It's, a pet peeve of mine. I'll put it that way. Yeah. But, in the end, this was just, very sad for me. But I feel like, your garden variety basic response is not okay.
It would have done you a disservice in this circumstance. So that's a great example to look at. Let's do one more.
I don't know that I have any more negatives. This is one that just...
I love it.
Okay, so here's another one. This is from 10 months ago. Took my kid couple times to this facility. Reason for 1 star is on their hidden charge. Both times they charged us $30 USD, which I guess they're trying to say $30, with best insurance plan. Same similar service is $0 at other providers. First time I thought this is for some special service, but second time I tried to verify with insurance provider. Even my insurance company is not able to help me understand this charge. Please make sure to call them up front and make sure your intended service and anticipated charges and verify it with the insurance company. So, for me, without looking at our response, and I'm pretty sure I did not get pulled into this response because all the money type responses are handled by my team. Yeah. But this is one that I was talking about where my response, if I had one, was to go, first of all, $30 for your kids' oral health is a drop in the bucket. Go away. My second response would have been like, that's between you and your insurance. Yeah. Don't bug me with that. My third response would have been, well, maybe there are dentists that waive that fee for you, which is illegal and fraud. And good luck with that, sir. So, none of my responses would have been appropriate here. But I do feel the need to respond and basically almost validate what he's saying. Yeah. I almost am like, yes, sir. Yeah. I'm not writing off anything. Yeah. And, etc. Point being, if there's other like-minded individuals, this is what we were saying at the beginning, if there's other like-minded individuals that are so focused on, you're not caring about the quality of care. No. You're not caring that your kid had a great experience in our office and got, that everything was sanitized and everybody had an N95 and we had air purifier. You weren't looking at any of that. You were looking at some $30 charge. I can bet you anything was fluoride not being covered or something foolish like that. And that's what you want to get hung up on, sir? Yeah. Well, then you go get hung up on it. There are multiple chains out there that will be up your alley. Because you're not concerned about the niceties and the pleasant greetings. Right. And the
general quality.
The general quality. The quality is not your priority. Well, you know what, sir? The quality is my priority. So anybody else like you who's going to get caught up on insurance things, our office is not for you because I am not going to write off your portion and I'm not even going to look into your portion. Yeah, exactly. Because that's a rabbit hole that I choose not to spend my time on. Yeah. I would rather have an employee spend their time on the quality of care and not on being on the phone with insurance all day long. Not that I'm knocking insurance. I know people need to utilize their insurance. I don't want surprise hidden fees either. Right. But $30 to me is not a hidden fee that I'm building my mansion on your $30, sir.
Well, and also I think you can say that with confidence because you know that you have team members in place that are charging ethically and honestly. You've got a system set up where when the patient is done, everything that was done in that visit is being double checked by your assistant. The front is double checking that. You've got your billing person that's also double checking that. So you've got all these systems set up where you know with 100% certainty that charge he's talking about is a legitimate charge. Absolutely. You don't even have to think about it. There are plenty of offices out there. So this is where I would challenge listeners. If you don't know what your patients are being charged when they walk out the door, it's time to dive into that. Because you need to be able to have the same response that you're having right now, that Dr. Kuba's having, which is, that's ridiculous, because we know that's a legitimate charge. If there's an office that doesn't know that's a legitimate charge, we need to dive into that and make sure it is.
True. Good. So here is what my team responded. We are disappointed to see that an insurance issue has overshadowed your child's experience with our office. We probably have that 1,000 times on all our 1,000 negative Google reviews that are all insurance focused. We're disappointed to see that an insurance issue has overshadowed your child's experience with our office. Unfortunately, we have little control over our patients' insurance's required copays and deductibles. These fees are not hidden and are discussed with patients at the time of their appointment.
Yeah.
The best source for information about your plan is the insurance carrier itself. However, if the representative was unhelpful in explaining how these fees work, please feel free to call our office and speak with our insurance coordinator, which I can almost bet he probably did and didn't like the response. I would bet money that this is one that we are required by the insurance contract to collect that copay. If he is talking about in another office, I can bet you anything that office, he probably squeaked. They probably wrote it off.
I think you're 100% correct.
And so now he's mad that he's squeaking and we're not writing it off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that is unethical. That is insurance fraud.
Exactly.
So, and I guess the other flip side would be, can you just write off the $30 to help protect our reputation and protect, I could see that side too. From the other, how do you prevent a board complaint and how do you prevent a bad Google review that's going to impact your business? It's just $30. Why don't we just write that off? So I do see that. But on the other hand, I do see, this is where I'm being bullied in my own office.
Yeah.
And
that leads to a game that I feel like we're always going to lose, especially with, and this is a whole nother podcast topic, especially with all of the insurance changes that I'm seeing out there right now post-pandemic. I mean, insurance they're in the fast mode of trying to rebound what they lost because of the pandemic. And so we are getting weird things now that insurance used to cover that all of a sudden they are now no longer covering. So if that has always been our default mode is they're squeaking, let's just write it off. Ooh, it makes me nervous because that's going to become an area that the write-offs become just
significant,
uncontrollable.
Yeah. The other thing I would say that I bet we probably did in this case too is we probably went back and looked at our charts to make sure that T's were crossed and I's were dotted. And what do I mean by that? Did the note make sense? Was the consent form signed that he agreed to the charges that aren't covered by insurance? Did he have, is everything in order? Because this really could, if he's complaining on Google, he really could file a complaint. And if he files a complaint, then the board is looking into it. Yeah. And then if they're finding things like where it is, you didn't consent to this or you didn't, etc., I don't have a leg to stand on. So in that case, if I had gone back and I had looked at everything and I made sure that if there was a document that wasn't signed or if there was something that didn't look right, I probably would have written off the $30. Yes, sir. Yeah. Sorry. Excuse me. This one time we'll write it off. Next time we'll whatever. So I would say, again, making sure you cover your own bases in that, because there are things that we have written off where we're like, mom did check. No, I don't prefer this if it's not covered. We try to do our due diligence there. If it's I don't want fluoride today, is it I don't want fluoride because I don't believe in fluoride? Right. Or do I not want fluoride because it's not covered by insurance? And so we know those families. Like we might have two siblings that this one can get fluoride covered by insurance, and for whatever reason sibling B is not covered. So we know it's not a fluoride is a toxic thing and I don't want my children exposed because you approved it for this one. Yeah. We know it's an insurance one. Yeah. You told us that. We told you that. We still missed it. We got into the groove of the appointment and we ended up putting on fluoride. You know what? Technically, I should be able to charge for that because we say we're not looking into your insurance coverage. That's on you. That's not on us. But that's one that I would say, you know what? If this is not completely... I can't be completely solid and sure that everything is going to fall in my favor should this woman complain. I'd probably write that off too. It's not worth the $30 to go through a headache. Yeah. In this case, it was And I can bet you he even said it in his own response. This is the second time this has happened. Bet you anything, the first time we probably wrote it off just to make him happy. I bet money that that's what happened. And so now he's squeaking again, and we probably said no this time. Yeah. So I feel very confident in saying, please go somewhere else if that's going to be your thing. Because you don't have any appreciation for all the nice things we are doing in the office. And you're going to come back and squeak and give me a 1-star over $30.
Over $30.
That,
and I think this response, this kind of ties back to something that you were saying earlier, how you don't want to attract every person to the office that's like, oh, there's never any, copays, or there's never, they always have talked to my insurance company and they know exactly what's going to be covered. We are not that office. And as an asterisk, very few offices can be that now. So if that's always been your claim to fame, is that you have these insurance estimates 100% accurate, that's no longer a reality anymore. But we wanted to make it clear in that response that you need to be talking to your insurance company. The best person to talk to is them regarding these charges. And I love how it says, if that person was unhelpful that you spoke to, you're welcome to call our insurance coordinator, and we can give you as much information as we have. And so it indicated that the person that they talked to who couldn't figure out this $30 charge was an idiot, is a really nice way. I mean, we put it very professionally, but you're like, you talked to an idiot.
Well, again, then I say, did you talk to an idiot? Or is that what you gleaned out of the conversation? Yeah. The person was not able to say, yeah, this is not a fair charge, so now you're not happy with their response. Or is it the insurance representative protecting their own interests and saying, oh, yeah, this doctor's office is definitely not handling things the right way. Did they throw us under the bus because they can? So any variety of options there. Yeah. But my take home from that was, sir, you are correct. We don't know the ins and outs of your insurance, and we are not going to be writing stuff off. So if you are like-minded individual like this person, please do not come to my office because you will not be happy.
I think so too. So I feel like we got a good spattering. Thanks for sharing your dirty laundry with all of us. We just dove in, smelling it all. So yeah.
Stinky. Funky.
So tell me, we always try to throw in mistakes that you feel like we've made, and I'm going to try to be thinking of, because again, I work with other people besides you, so I'm trying to think of response mistakes or just general mistakes that people make when it comes to online reviews. Can you think of a response that you ever made or that your team ever made that may have not been the best? Or
I think yes. It was funny, actually. You may remember this. Last year, I help teach sometimes with the residents at the dental school, and I created a PowerPoint that goes through, how to respond, etc. And so last year when we gave our presentation, and there was a resident who said, y'all are going way, like your response is like way overboard. And I never thought about that. I think for somebody of his personality, he was definitely one that the patient said, blah, 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 blah. And you could tell my defenses, my claws were out. My response was like 4 paragraphs. And he was like, okay, that's kind of overkill. So in his eyes, I was perpetuating the drama of this long, drawn-out response. Now, I still agree with my response. Yeah. But it did make me go pause and say, okay, well, not everybody, again, it's not going to suit everybody. So if he was a parent about to bring his kid to the office, he would probably go, this office is a bit of drama. And you'd probably have another resident that would go, no, this is exactly where I would take my kid, because I see that they're not. When you read the mom's complaint, it was very specific, and it was very much, as a parent, if I had just read that review, I would have many concerns about taking my kid to our office. Yeah. So
you felt like it justified.
Right. And I don't know if you remember, before we posted that must have gone through at least 50 edits.
Oh, we edited so many times.
That took us days and multiple opinions and we had everybody and their dog in on that response.
And again, it was worth that effort.
But you and I think so. Yeah. You and I think it was worth that effort. But clearly this resident is like, what is wrong with you people? Like, I think he was thinking the garden variety response of thank you for your feedback, whatever, would have been the appropriate one. So my takeaway from that is, yeah, even my responses aren't going to be appropriate for
everybody,
for every audience.
Yeah.
And I may turn away people. Like, I'm thinking I'm putting this response that's going to help gain patients that are going to see it from my side. And in this case, it was a very an eye-opening moment that it was, you know, this guy was like, this office seems like
it's
too much
too
drama.
much.
Yeah. So a mistake would be, it was eye-opening to me to say that even with my responses, as however well thought out I try to be, may still be missing the mark for a subset.
A segment of the population.
And dare I say half the population. I don't know.
Hey, that's a mistake that we'll just continue to live in oblivion on,
and
right?
Maybe this is where the liability companies are saying just garden variety.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say from the clients that I work with, the biggest mistake that I see is burying the head in the sand. We don't think about it. I remember the first time I met with one client, and I always look, before I start with a client, I always look at their website and their reviews and all of that just to kind of get a feel for who they are. And the reviews were really low. This particular client was in a heavily populated area, and there was lots of competition in that area. And so I remember reading through the reviews to get a feel for what are patients experiencing in this office and why. I mean, when I say low, you're looking at a 3-star, 3.2 star review. And in Google world, when we pull that up and we see a 3.2, that's not even, we don't even consider it, right? We move straight past that and find somebody in that 4 to 5 range is what we're going for. And so when I mentioned the reviews with this person, they were unaware. They're completely unaware that those reviews existed and that they were so low. And that is what I call burying your head in the sand. So this particular practice was struggling with new patients. They were struggling with growth, couldn't figure out why. They were out marketing, they were out doing this, and had never thought about the value of looking at those reviews and figuring out what people were saying and correcting what people were saying. There were plenty of learning opportunities, obviously, like the reviews we just looked at. There's plenty of them that are just one-sided and not fair. But when you've got a 3.2 star review on Google, there's plenty of fair feedback in there that we were able to kind of sort through and glean from that. So I would say for me, that's the biggest mistake that I see is dentists just digging their head in the sand and not even thinking about it. So
yeah, and it's hard to have a team. Like I said, it took us over 2 years to get a team in place that can allow me to bury my head.
Yeah.
But it's not easy or fun. Yes, you're spending resources on an employee to be the one to monitor what's being said on Google and this and that. So it's definitely time consuming. It's gut wrenching. It's all of that. But it's part of what we do.
It's part of the daily dental drama, right?
Part of the daily dental drama.
Awesome. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.